combine it with the parameters, right? So this is to create the reference for the live view count. So we're taking two observables, and we need to combine them together. So we care about the URL, of course, because we need to know which article we're looking at. And then we care about the user, right? So we'll take the params, we'll take the auth state, and instead of filter on no user, we filter on not user, right? So what we're doing is we're taking it and turning it into a true or false, whether or not there is a user. So this combined latest, what does this do? Right? So this is a combined latest. The cool thing here with this code, this may seem very simple. What if one of these hasn't fired yet, right? What if, so imagine you have two callbacks, right? So you're getting the parameters, and that's a callback. And then you're getting a user, and that's a callback. Right? Like, what if one of them hasn't returned yet? You might nest them, right? So you might wait for the user to come back, and then get the parameters. The trouble is that then you're waiting for one to finish before you get the other request. So that makes things slower. What this is going to do is both of these observables, A and B, are going to start in parallel, right? So these requests are made in parallel. And then once both of them emit their first value, the first value of the observable is fired. And then anytime either one of them changes, the observable is fired again, right? So imagine that code, you know, without RX, right? Again, very long, a lot of code. So we're combining those, so we have the parameters and we have the user, the auth state. So then we go ahead and we build that visitor reference. So we actually grab from the real-time database this time the reference to the article visitors, parameters, and then the user ID. So now we have where we're going to store the visitor data in the database. And then finally, when the visitor ref is not null, what we're going to do is we're going to set the visitor ref to true. And if the user disconnects from the connection to the real-time database, we're going to remove that from the real-time database. So what we're doing is we're actually storing a value in the real-time database, and then on disconnect, removing it. On disconnect can happen if they close the page of the web browser, if their internet breaks out. It's whenever the connection to the real-time database is severed. The cool thing here with on disconnect is this dot remove, this operation, is actually stored on the server. So, you know, if we close the browser page, how do we remove the data? Right? How do we decrement the counter if they close the browser tab? We can't, right? We have to rely on the server to do this. So this dot remove is transmitted to the server. So whenever the connection is severed with the user, it removes the data. Now, the one case that we have to deal with here is they actually navigate to a different page, right? Because this is when the connection to the browser is terminated. So we need this last on destroy. So when Angular routes, you know, it'll decrement. And again, this isn't functional code, and this is where that behavior stuff is. Because we can go ahead and short circuit the observable stuff and just get the last good value. So this is what it ends up looking like. When people visit the page, they get this randomly assigned ID, right? So we have the article ID, and then we have the user's ID, and we set it to true. And whenever they leave the page, that's removed from the database. So that's not really a user count yet. And this is where Cloud Functions comes in, right? So what I'm going to do with Cloud Functions is actually listen to that route to the URL. Cloud Functions can actually take wildcards here. So you take the article ID, the UID of the user. On create, on delete, what we do is we go ahead, we go to the article view count in the data, and we do a transaction on here. We're storing the count as well in the real-time database, because if you play around with counters on Firestore, you know there are some caveats there. So here, if a visitor is created, we increment the current count through a transaction, right? So this ensures that if we have a lot of visitors, there's not going to be contention and overwrites, and the counter's going to not end up looking how we want it to look. We need a transaction. And what this transaction is, this is not like a SQL transaction. This is not locking the database. It's basically saying if the data is stale, I'm going to insert into the database or change the database. If the user's changed since, if the data's changed since then, retry this code. So it'll retry it all the time. So if there's contention, your cloud functions will be spinning a couple of extra tens of milliseconds to get the counters in. And then similarly on the delete event, right, we go to that view count and we minus a 1. And that would handle that on this event. So this is what our final thing in the database looks like. Is you have these 3 truths, it changes this to 3. So now we can do the same thing. Let's show the view count on the web page, right? So we are already handling, with all that signing anonymously, pushing the database, we're already handling all that. So now let's just grab it. So we'll do the parameter switch map. You know, you see the switch map, switch map, switch map. And we're grabbing that parameter, putting it into there, and getting the value changes. So this is what that looks like, right? Being read by view count. And there you go. So finally, rendering our application, right? This is all the code to build it. Now rendering it, right? So we're going to be using NG Universal and Webpack. So this allows us to generate the HTML server side. You know, even if the user has JavaScript disabled or they're on a slow internet connection, so they can actually see content. The cool thing here is when the JavaScript loads, it'll rehydrate, and the JavaScript will take over the web page from the pre-rendered HTML. We'll be using Cloud Functions for about Firebase and Firebase hosting. So this is what this ends up looking like. What I'm doing here is, with Angular, I've compiled the bundle, right? The server-side rendering bundle. That's pretty easy these days. And this is going to be my server JavaScript, right? And what I'm doing is I'm loading in some stuff from NG Universal. I'm writing it in Express Engine, and then I'm doing a cache control. So this is one of the cool things about actually doing it this way, is we can set this cache control header so that if multiple people are hitting the page, they're getting the same file, right? It's not hitting the server again, it's not rendering the content. And this is because Firebase hosting is behind that fast CDN. And then this is what it looks like in my Cloud Functions. Very top, super simple, right? Because what I'm ending up doing is webpacking it. And again, webpack's a bit of an iceberg. So it looks simple, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So I take this application that I exported, and I route it to an on request. On request is just an Express.js. And then in my Firebase JSON, I rewrite all the URLs to this platform. Now what that's going to do is, if hosting doesn't already have a file in its public directory, it's going to fall back. It's going to 404 to this Cloud Function, which then renders the HTML and sets a cache header. So then it's in hosting. So if the Wi-Fi is cooperating, there is actually a live demo. You can go to onsnapshot.com, check it out, and you should see, if it loads, that view count. If people are navigating into articles back and forth, you should see that view count going up and down, like an old GDG page. So, to review, we built a very cool solution using Firestore functions, database. We use Angular bindings, server-side rendering, and Firebase hosting. So Firebase has very, very powerful tools for building performant web applications. This code is actually on GitHub. I've also recently updated it, so like it has some newer Angular syntax, and there's more cleanups to come. It's a little bit of a rat's nest right now, but you can get the gist, check it out. And I talked a lot about Angular Fire and integrations with Angular, but if you're not an Angular developer, we actually recently came out with RX Fire. And RX Fire is reactive extensions for Firebase. And this allows if you're a Vue developer or a React developer and you're interested in some of the benefits of using RxJS with Firebase, we've actually built a lot of pipes for you, and a lot of functions that you can get. So thank you very much. If you want to ping me after this, I'll be around. You can grab me, ask me questions. The best way to get in touch with me is actually Twitter, and there's my Twitter handle right there. Thank you.
Oke, kita buka sesi pertanyaan untuk sesi James ya. James, right? Or Dan?
Yeah,
which one? James, alright. Oke, ada yang mau tanya? Oke, 1, 2. Oke, 2 dulu gak apa-apa deh. Mungkin boleh minta tolong buat kasih mic-nya ke yang penanya. Oke, disebutin nama, kemudian dari mana ya. Sama nanti kita akan tetap ada kasih hadiah buat yang nanya.
My name is Rudy from Surabaya. My question is when the data disconnect and then data connected again, can the data synchronize automatically?
Pardon? Send what automatically?
Data connection internet.
Yes.
Buat
Data disconnect and then disconnect again.
Yeah.
Can synchronize automatically when data without
connection.
Without
yeah. Okay. So the disconnect when it fires and they don't have a connection, right? So that works because when you tell it to do something on disconnect, when you say on disconnect, it actually sends what it wants to happen to the server. So if there's a connection, then they'll send it up to the server. So then that way, if the client disconnects, the server knows what to do, right? And that's how that works. But you need that initial connection to the server in order to send that. Yeah.
Okay, jadi bisa. So yeah, it's possible, right?
Yes.
Okay. Di yang pertanyaan kedua mana tadi ya? Udah hilang. Ya, pertanyaan kedua silakan.
Okay, thank you for that. My name is Ozi, and I came from originally I'm from Palu. So my question is about the switch map function. I'm also learning to be a developer. So the question is, will the switch map function will be able to handle the concurrency? Because you just said that it's all about the server-side rendering, and previously I was working in the project also with the server-side rendering, and the problem is about the concurrency. Tons of requests at the same time, and there's like outside requests in the same time.
Yeah, so dealing with RxJS, concurrency, switch maps, networks. Now so this is another one of those icebergs, right? Where it looks very simple on top, but underneath it's very complex. there's two things to understand, right? First, and probably least likely that you're going to run into, is Zone.js, right? So Zone.js is what Angular uses to know whether or not there are active connections, right? If there's promises yet fulfilled, and you know, it's in that event. So Zone.js can cause you problems. This is particular for server-side rendering. But a lot of times what's happened is libraries should be Zone.js patched, right? So a lot of Zone.js actually monkey patches a lot of libraries, so that you get network requests are on the right thread, stuff like that, and it all works with Zone.js. The second problem is scheduling. So Zone.js schedulers and RxJS schedulers are a beast. I don't even fully understand them yet. But basically, in Rx and RxJS, when you're building your observable, there are actually pipes that you can tell it what queue or what scheduling mechanism to use for these tasks, like switch maps or maps or concat maps, right? So the default one, by default, is a global queue. So the trouble is that this is where you get that deadlocking, right? Is you have a lot of events firing and the HTTP calls, they're not fulfilling, you get a lot of contention, and your observable just jams up. What you can do there is look into RxJS schedulers. So one of the things that I've done with AngularFire is AngularFire is using its own queue, and then further, each different reference in the database uses its own queue, right? So the idea is that each observable is using its own queue, so there won't be a lot of contention and deadlock. But do check out the RxJS schedulers. There's been a lot of changes with those recently. As of RxJS 6, they play better with Zone.js now too. So if you're doing it in an Angular context, it works a lot better. So check those out.
Oke, thank you pertanyaannya ya.
Mr.
Jelas sekali nggak ya? Oke, sebelumnya saya juga mengucapkan selamat datang untuk Laura Villaloma. Beliau adalah Google Developer Relation Regional Indonesia. Laura, where are you? Oh, right there, Laura. Dia mau ngomong di depan ya. Oke, sesi ini udah selesai. Sekarang saya mau tepuk tangan sekali lagi buat James. Well, I'm gonna invite three of you again, guys. We're gonna take a picture together here with the audience as well. So yeah, just please go back to the stage. Dan teman-teman ini mungkin untuk foto. Nah ini caranya biar nggak semuanya maju ya, karena takut anjlok kan ya. Teman-teman bisa stay di situ ya. Nanti dari fotografernya akan memotret dari sini gitu, atau mungkin gimana nggak tahu. Backgroundnya datang gitu ya. Ya positif ya, nanti teman-teman duduk aja atau gimana, suruh maju duduk dulu ya. Oke, berarti nanti backgroundnya mereka ya, tetap ya. Oke. Ya oke, first. Alright. Okay. Great. Okay. Okay, step one more with the documentation group. Okay, Acoustic sama Laura, please come to the stage, please. Ini adalah Google Developer Relation Indonesia. Yang belum tahu nih adalah buildingnya. Oh, kita buat dulu. Tunggu dulu sama Laura dulu ya. Nah, lanjut. Tunggu dulu mas. Bisa satu lagi. Jangan. Caranya cuma dua nih, jangan di pojok-pojok ya. Laura, please come to the stage. Orang sini. Maju lagi. Okay, ready?
Yeah. Hi, Tim.
gantian kita ya. Kayaknya kita turun aja kali ya. Bilang udah. We go to the stage now. Udah, so let's go to the stage. Nah ini teman-teman, kita lagi dapat semuanya ya. Kita menggunakan fotografer ya, biar kelihatannya. Terus, mungkin yang belakang sendiri, yang belakang sendiri mungkin boleh berdiri ya, biar boleh yang belakang sendiri aja tapi ya. Boleh sambil yang belakang aja lagi ya, namanya boleh gini biar kelihatan dari ini ya. Teman-teman nggak usah yang belakang itu kan, bukanya ya, yang mana? Tahan aja ya. Oke, ada semua nggak? Ada setuju nggak? Tinggal ya. Lapar ya Pak ya? Sabar ya, di sini kita makan siang ya. Gimana?
Lunch with
Udah? Kita berdiri, nggak perlu nunduk ya berarti ya. Yang depan ini nggak usah nunduk ya. Oke. Ini foto 3 kali panorama. Apa dong? Iya.
Oke, the kamera. 1, 2, 3, cheese.
Ini enggak, ini kelihatan semua kan? Kelihatan semua, aman aja ya.
Ada di mana di sini?
Kamera.
Syutingnya di mana? Like sini lah.
Oke.
Pencitraan berarti lah.
Waduh, ya. Terima kasih. Thank you. Dennis and Aditya. Oke, kita langsung makan siang. Teman-teman panitia bisa masuk sekarang untuk membagikan makan siang ini teman-teman. Nggak usah kemana-mana. Akan dibagiin langsung ke teman-teman ya. Nah, sampai saya ingat juga sekali lagi. Mana nih panitia ya? Nanti jangan lupa dibagiin makan siangnya. Jadi kalau makan siang di sini, tapi diperhatikan lagi ya, kebersihannya harus terjaga. Makan panitia mulai dibagikan. Nah, ini namanya bersuara semua infonya. Saya juga yang teman-teman dibagi, kalau makan di sini, mohon kerjasamanya nanti makanannya biar nggak jatuh ya, menjaga kebersihan makanan. Ya, biar aja semuanya masuk bagian. Terus saya kasih info juga buat teman-teman yang mau menunaikan ibadah sholat, bisa di lantai 1. Bisa di lantai 1, jadi turun lagi ke lantai 1, kita bersolat bisa ke sana. Nanti kita balik lagi, kita mulai lagi sesi konteksnya jam 1 siang. Jadi ini makan dulu, biar isi dulu ya logistiknya ya. Kemudian nanti turun ke lantai 1 buat sholat yang mau sholat, yang nggak bisa stay di sini, atau bisa ke roomnya fireplace station. Terus juga bisa take picture, bisa foto di boothnya acara kita juga di meja registrasi. Oke, lalu kita masih ada formula untuk Instagram, untuk foto Instagram ya. Harus di-share di Instagram masing-masing, jangan lupa hashtagnya Fireplace Backstage Surabaya, GDG Surabaya, dan juga hashtag Fireplace. Gitu ya. Ini yang mau posting silakan, posting. Mau juga boleh, mau makan posting juga boleh ya. Kemudian mau tanya soal makan, mau silakan ke fire station atau booth, silakan. Dan jangan lupa sekali untuk mengisi yang namanya feedback form. Karena yang telah dilakukan dengan kaos yang semua digunakan oleh para pembicara hari ini. Jadi limited edition spesial buat yang ada di Surabaya dan kemarin sama pembicaranya. Jadi harus ditunggu sampai selesai ya. Oke, kita kembali lagi jam 1 siang. Mau kerjasamanya untuk tetap jaga kebersihan.